My name is Jordan Castellano and I am 26 years old. 3 weeks ago, I stood on a podium in Paris with a gold medal around my neck while 80,000 people screamed my name. The cameras found my coach in the stands, tears streaming down her face, both fists in the air. They found my teammates, jumping and hugging and crying. They found my mother clutching a sign she'd made on the plane, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. And then they found him, my father, sitting 12 rows behind my mother, alone, hands in his lap, face frozen and an expression I couldn't read from the field. But I didn't need to. I'd seen that face my whole life: disapproval, disappointment, the quiet conviction that I was making a mistake. For 22 years, my father told me that sports were a waste of time, that athletics would never pay the bills, that I was throwing away my future chasing a childish dream. 3 weeks ago, I proved him wrong on the biggest stage in the world, and he was there to watch. Before we get into this, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you, and drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you are right now. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not to Paris, not to the medal, but to a backyard in suburban New Jersey, where a 4-year-old girl discovered the only thing that ever made her feel truly alive. I don't remember a time when I wasn't running. My mother says I skipped walking entirely, went straight from crawling to sprinting, like I was trying to escape something from the moment I could move. By 3, I was outrunning kids twice my age at the playground. By 5, I was winning every race at field day. By 7, a youth track coach pulled my mother aside and said 4 words that would change my life. She has a gift. My mother believed him. My father didn't. Vincent Castellano was a practical man. An accountant by trade, a pessimist by nature. He believed in things you could measure: salaries, savings accounts, retirement plans. He believed in security, stability, safety. He believed that dreams were distractions, and passion was a luxury for people who didn't have bills to pay. When I told him I wanted to join the youth track team, he said no. "Sports are fine for fun," he said, not looking up from his newspaper. "But they're not a career. Focus on your schoolwork." I was 7 years old. I didn't know what a career was. I just knew I loved to run. My mother enrolled me anyway. She paid for it out of her own savings, hiding the registration fees from my father like they were contraband. For 2 years, she drove me to practices and meets while my father thought I was at study sessions or friends' houses. When he found out, the fight that followed shook the walls. "You're encouraging this nonsense?" he shouted at my mother. "She needs to focus on academics, on her future, not on running around in circles like an idiot." I was 9 years old, sitting on the stairs listening through the railing. An idiot. That's what my dream made me in his eyes. My mother stood her ground. "She's talented, Vincent. Really talented. You'd see it if you ever bothered to come watch." Not once. Not to a single meet, a single championship, a single moment of my athletic childhood. I learned early that my father's love was conditional, that it came with requirements I could never meet, and I learned that the thing I loved most in the world, running, was the thing that made me least lovable in his eyes. By middle school, I wasn't just good. I was exceptional. I broke the state record for the 400 meters when I was 13. I won junior nationals at 14. By 15, college scouts were already circling, talking to my mother in hushed tones about scholarships and training programs, and something they kept calling Olympic potential. The words felt like a secret language, a door opening to a world I'd only dreamed about. My father heard the scouts once. A coach from a prestigious university had come to our house. Sitting in our living room with a folder full of statistics and projections, he talked about full-ride scholarships, about world-class training facilities, about the real possibility that I could represent my country at the Olympics. My father listened, and when the coach finished, he said, "And what happens when she gets injured? What happens when she's 25 and her body gives out and she has no degree, no skills, no career? She becomes a cautionary tale, another broken athlete with nothing to show for it." The coach looked stunned. He tried to explain that student athletes got educations too, that there were paths forward even after sports, that the discipline and work ethic translated to any career. My father shook his head. "I've seen too many kids chase these dreams and end up with nothing. I won't let that be my daughter." He said it like he was protecting me, like he was saving me from myself. The coach left. My father turned to me. I want you to stop this, Jordan. Focus on school. Get a real degree. Become something stable. A doctor, a lawyer, an accountant like me. Something that will actually last. I'd spent a decade building toward this moment, and my father wanted me to throw it all away. I didn't respond. I just walked upstairs, closed my door, and cried into my pillow until there were no tears left. That night, my mother came to my room. She sat on the edge of my bed and took my hand. "Your father loves you," she said. He shows it wrong. He's scared. His father had dreams too, and they didn't work out. And your father spent his childhood in poverty because of it. He's trying to protect you from that." "But I'm good," I whispered. "I know you are, baby." She squeezed my hand. "And I'm not going to let him take this from you. We'll find a way." She did. My mother became my secret weapon. She drove me to practices he didn't know about. She found sponsors who covered what scholarships didn't. She applied to training programs behind his back and forged his signature when she had to. She believed in me when my own father wouldn't. If you've ever been in a situation where your family refused to support your dreams, where the people who should have cheered the loudest told you to stop, drop a fire emoji in the comments. And if you think my father is going to regret this, type karma. I accepted a full scholarship to Stanford at 17. My father didn't speak to me for a week. When he finally did, it was at dinner, 2 days before I left for California. He set down his fork, looked at me with that familiar disappointment, and said, "You're making a mistake. This athletic scholarship, it's a trap. One injury and you lose everything. You should have taken the academic route. Built something sustainable." "I am building something sustainable," I said. "I'm getting a degree and competing at the highest level. I can do both. No one can do both. You'll burn out. You'll fail. And when you do, don't come crying to me." I stared at him across the table. My mother was frozen, fork halfway to her mouth. The silence was thick enough to choke on. "I won't," I said finally. "I won't come crying to you, because you were never there for my successes, and you won't be there for my failures either. You've made that perfectly clear." I stood up and left the table. I didn't see my father again before I left for college. He didn't come to the airport. He didn't call. He didn't text. My mother drove me. She held me at the terminal and whispered, "Prove them all wrong, baby. Every single one of them." I intended to. Stanford was everything I'd dreamed of and more. World-class coaches, state-of-the-art facilities, teammates who pushed me harder than I'd ever been pushed. I wasn't the fastest anymore. Not automatically, not by default. I was surrounded by the best in the country, and I had to fight for every 10th of a second. I loved it. My freshman year, I won the NCAA championships in the 400 meters. My sophomore year, I broke the collegiate record. My junior year, I qualified for my first world championships. Each time I achieved something, I sent my father a text. Just the facts. The result, the time, the ranking, no emotion. No request for acknowledgement. Just information. He never responded. Not once. My mother came to every competition she could afford to attend. She flew across the country on budget airlines, slept in cheap motels, held signs she'd made in hotel rooms the night before. She was my entire cheering section. My father stayed home, working, he said. Busy, he said. Important meetings, he said. I stow the Olympics, Paris 2024. The culmination of everything I'd worked for since I was 7 years old. I qualified with the fastest time in the country, second fastest in the world. The press called me a lock for gold. My coach told me to ignore the pressure, to focus on the process, to trust the training. Easier said than done. The week before I left for Paris, my mother called me. "Your father wants to come," she said. I almost dropped the phone. "What?" "He saw the coverage. He knows how big this is. He asked me to get him a ticket." I was silent for a long moment. 22 years of being told I was wasting my time. 22 years of empty seats where my father should have been. And now, when I was about to compete on the biggest stage in the world, he wanted to show up. "He wants to come now," I said slowly. "When there are cameras, when the whole world is watching, when it finally looks successful enough for him to be proud of." "Jordan, he never came to a single meet, Mom. Not one. He called my dream a waste of time. He told me I'd fail. He told me I'd become a cautionary tale. And now he wants front row seats to my Olympic moment? My mother was quiet. Then, he's your father. He's a man who shares my DNA. That doesn't make him my father. Not in any way that matters. Baby, I know he hurt you. But maybe this is his way of trying to make it right. I closed my eyes, took a breath. Fine, I said. He can come, but he's not sitting with you. He's not in the family section. If he wants to watch, he can buy his own ticket like everyone else. My mother relayed the message. My father agreed. Quietly, I'm told, without protest. He booked his own flight, his own hotel, his own seat in the general admission section, 12 rows behind where my mother would be waving her sign. He'd spent 22 years in the bleachers of my life, refusing to show up. Now he could sit in the bleachers, literally. I have to pause here. What do you think happened at the Olympics? Option A, I won gold, and my father finally apologized. Option B, I choked under pressure and my father said, I told you so. Option C, I won, but my father still couldn't bring himself to acknowledge it. Drop your answer in the comments. The Stade de France. 80,000 people. The roar of the crowd like a living thing, a sound you feel in your chest before you hear with your ears. I stood in the blocks, lane 5, the lane I'd drawn. The sun was setting behind the stadium, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. My competitors stretched beside me, the best sprinters in the world, women who had trained their entire lives for this exact moment, same as me. I thought about my father, not with anger, not with hope, just awareness. He was somewhere in that crowd, watching, judging, deciding whether I'd prove him right or wrong. Then I stopped thinking about him entirely. The announcer called our names. The crowd roared for each of us. When he said, Jordan Castellano, United States of America, I felt the sound wash over me like a wave. I crouched into the blocks, hands on the track, fingers spread against the rubber surface I'd pressed myself against 10,000 times before. On your marks, silence. 80,000 people holding their breath. Set. I lifted my hips, my weight shifted forward, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring. The gun fired. I don't remember the race itself. Not consciously. I remember fragments. The push off the blocks, the first 100 meters where I found my rhythm, the curve where I felt myself accelerating, the final straight where I could see the finish line, and nothing else existed. I remember the moment I crossed that line. I remember looking up at the scoreboard. First, Jordan Castellano, USA, 47.89. A new Olympic record. The sound that erupted from the crowd wasn't a roar anymore. It was an explosion, a wall of noise that hit me like a physical force. I fell to my knees on the track, hands pressed against the rubber that had given me everything. I'd done it. 22 years of work. 22 years of being told I was wasting my time. And I'd just won Olympic gold. My teammates rushed the track. My coach somehow got past security and wrapped me in a hug that lifted me off my feet. The cameras swarmed. The microphones appeared. Everyone wanted a piece of the moment. I looked up into the stands, found my mother first. She was easy to spot, the woman having a complete emotional breakdown while waving a poster board. I blew her a kiss. Then I looked 12 rows back. My father was sitting exactly where he said he'd be. He wasn't cheering, he wasn't crying, he wasn't even standing, he was just watching. Hands in his lap. Face unreadable. I held his gaze for 3 seconds. Then I turned away. I had a medal ceremony to attend. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Because the next part of this story is where everything comes to a head. The medal ceremony was a blur of gold and anthems, and trying not to cry on international television. I failed at the not crying part. The moment they put that medal around my neck and the American flag started rising, I broke down completely. I wasn't crying because I'd won. I was crying because for the first time in my life, I felt like I had permission to exist exactly as I was. For 22 years, I'd been told that my passion was wrong, that my choices were wrong, that I was wrong. And now I was standing on the highest podium in the world, wearing proof around my neck that everything I'd sacrificed had been worth it. The universe wasn't vindicating me. I was vindicating myself. After the ceremony, there were interviews, press conferences, drug testing. Always drug testing. By the time I finally got back to the Olympic Village, it was past midnight. My phone had exploded. Thousands of messages from people I knew and people I didn't. endorsement offers, media requests, friends from elementary school I hadn't spoken to in 15 years, suddenly remembering that we were so close. And one text from an unknown number. Congratulations. I'm proud of you, Dad. I stared at that message for a long time. Proud of me. After 22 years. After missing every meet, every championship, every moment that mattered. After telling me I was wasting my time. After calling my dream a childish fantasy. After sitting in the stands with his hands in his lap while the whole world celebrated. Now he was proud. I didn't respond. I put the phone down, took a shower, and lay in my bed staring at the ceiling until sleep finally came. The next morning, my mother called. "Your father wants to see you," she said. "He's still in Paris. He wants to have dinner." "Of course he does. Jordan. He wants to have dinner now. Now that I've won. Now that it's prestigious. Now that being associated with me looks good instead of embarrassing. He's trying. In his own way, he's trying. His way took 22 years, Mom. I've been trying my whole life. I've been begging him to see me my whole life. And now that the whole world sees me, suddenly he wants to have dinner?" My mother was quiet. "I'll go," I said finally. "Not for him. For me. I need to say some things. And he's going to listen." We met at a restaurant near the Champs-Élysées, upscale. The kind of place my father never would have chosen on his own, but I picked it. I picked it because I could afford it now. Because endorsements were already rolling in. Because I wanted him to sit in a place that represented everything he thought I'd never have. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking uncomfortable in a suit jacket that didn't quite fit anymore. He'd aged since I'd last seen him in person, at my college graduation 3 years earlier. His hair was grayer, his shoulders were narrower. He looked smaller somehow. I sat across from him. The waiter brought menus. Neither of us opened them. "You looked incredible out there," my father said. "The way you ran that final straight, I've never seen anything like it." "You've never seen any of my races," I said. "So you wouldn't know." He flinched. "Good. Jordan, I know I wasn't. I know I didn't." "Didn't what, Dad? Support me? Believe in me? Show up once in 22 years? Use complete sentences. I want to hear you say it." He looked down at the tablecloth. "I didn't handle things well. I was scared for you. I've seen so many people chase dreams and end up with nothing. I didn't want that for you. So instead, you gave me nothing while I was chasing it. No support, no presence, no encouragement, just criticism, just doubt, just being told over and over that I was wasting my time. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to control me. There's a difference." He looked up. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I almost laughed. "You want to talk about fair? I was 7 years old when I told you I wanted to run. 7. And you looked at me like I'd said something stupid. I spent the next 20 years proving myself to everyone in the world except the one person whose approval actually mattered to me." The waiter appeared. I waved him away. "I stopped needing your approval around college," I continued. "I realized it was never coming. Not because I hadn't earned it, but because you were incapable of giving it. You were so afraid of your own father's failures that you couldn't let your daughter succeed." My father's jaw tightened. My father. I know the story. He had big dreams. They didn't work out. You grew up poor. You decided dreams were dangerous. But here's the thing, Dad. I'm not your father. I'm not you. I'm me. And I succeeded despite you, not because of you. The restaurant hummed around us. Glasses clinked. Conversations murmured. A world continuing to turn, while mine stood still. "I have an Olympic gold medal," I said. "A world record. Endorsements that will set me up for life. A degree from Stanford. Everything you said I couldn't have, I have it. And you know what I don't have?" He didn't answer. A single memory of my father cheering for me. Not one. My father was quiet for a long time. The waiter came back. I ordered wine. I needed something to do with my hands. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "I don't know if I can, but I want to try. That's why I came to Paris. That's why I'm here. You came to Paris because I was winning. If I'd lost, you'd be at home right now telling Mom you told me so. That's not—" He stopped, reconsidered. "Maybe. I don't know. But I'm here now. Doesn't that count for something?" It counts for something, I said. It counts for showing up 22 years late to a lifetime of moments you'll never get back. It counts for finally seeing what the whole world already sees. It counts for exactly what it is. Too little, too late. He looked like I'd slapped him. Maybe I had, verbally. But, I continued, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life carrying anger toward you. That's too heavy. And I've learned that carrying weight that isn't mine is the fastest way to slow myself down. I took a sip of wine, steadied myself. I forgive you, Dad. Not because you deserve it, not because you've earned it, but because I deserve to move forward without dragging your disapproval behind me like a chain. His eyes were wet. I'd never seen my father cry. I wasn't sure he was capable of it. That said, I continued, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean we're going to have the relationship we should have had. That door closed a long time ago. You don't get to walk through it now just because my success makes you look good. Jordan, I'm your father. You're the man who raised me. That's different from being a father. A father shows up. A father believes. A father sits in the stands at every meet, not just the one where 80,000 people are watching. I leaned forward. You want to be my father? Start now. But understand that you're starting from zero, less than zero. You're starting from 22 years in the negative. He nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because here's what that means. You don't get to post about me on social media like you were part of this. You don't get to tell your friends and coworkers about my daughter the Olympian like you supported me. You don't get to take credit for something you actively tried to prevent. If you want a relationship with me, it's going to be private, quiet, built from scratch, and it's going to take years. We'll see. I finished my wine, set the glass down. I have to go. There's a celebration with my team tonight, with the people who actually believed in me. I stood up. My father stood too awkwardly, like he wanted to hug me but knew he didn't have the right. Jordan, he said, that text I sent last night, I meant it. I am proud of you. I looked at him. This man who had shaped my life through absence rather than presence. This man who had made me stronger by forcing me to become strong alone. I know you are, I said. You're proud now that it's safe to be proud. Now that the risk is gone and the reward is here. But pride after the fact isn't the same as belief before it. You missed the part where your pride would have actually mattered. I turned and walked out of the restaurant. Behind me, I heard my father sit back down, alone. The celebration that night was everything I needed. My teammates, my coaches, the support staff who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes. We took over a rooftop bar near the Eiffel Tower and danced until the sun came up. My coach, Martina, found me at one point, standing at the edge of the roof looking out at the city. You okay? She asked. I heard you met with your father. News travels fast. Olympic Village is a small world. She stood beside me. How did it go? I said what I needed to say. Whether he heard it, that's not my problem. Martina nodded. She knew my history. She'd been coaching me for 4 years, and she'd never once seen my father at an event. She'd asked about it exactly once, early on. My face had told her everything she needed to know. For what it's worth, she said, you don't need his validation. You never did. The only person who needed to believe in you was you. Everyone else, the coaches, the sponsors, the fans, we're just supporting characters in your story. And my father? A cautionary tale, she said with a slight smile. Not yours, his. He's the one who'll have to live with missing this. He's the one who'll tell this story for the rest of his life and know that he wasn't there for any of it. She was right. She usually was. The weeks after Paris were a whirlwind. Endorsement deals, magazine covers, talk show appearances. Everywhere I went, people wanted to know my story. The little girl who was told she was wasting her time and proved the world wrong. I told the story honestly. I didn't hide what my father had said. I didn't protect his reputation. But I also didn't demonize him. I simply stated the facts and let people draw their own conclusions. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages poured in from people who'd had similar experiences, parents who didn't believe in them, families who dismissed their dreams, loved ones who only showed up when success was guaranteed. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. One interview stood out. A late-night show, 3 weeks after I got home. The host asked me what I would say to young athletes whose parents didn't support them. I looked into the camera and said, Your dream is not a waste of time just because someone else can't see its value. The people who love you should believe in you before you prove them right, not after. And if they can't do that, then you have to believe in yourself hard enough for everyone. It's lonely. It's exhausting. But it's possible. I'm living proof. The clip went viral, 30 million views in 3 days, and somewhere in suburban New Jersey, my father watched it. I know because my mother told me. He cried. She said he watched it 4 times and cried every single time. Good, I said. Maybe now he understands. It's been 3 months since Paris. 3 months since I stood on that podium with gold around my neck. 3 months since my father sat in the stands and watched me become everything he said I'd never be. Things are different now. Not fixed. Different. My father has started calling. Not often, but regularly. He asks about my training. He asks about my life. He listens more than he talks, which is new for him. He's trying. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully let him in. 22 years of absence created a canyon between us that polite phone calls can't bridge, but I've decided to leave the door open. Not for him, but for me. Carrying resentment is heavy. I'd rather carry gold. My mother and I are closer than ever. She flew to every event she could afford, maxed out credit cards, worked overtime just to be in the stands. When I thanked her after Paris, she just shook her head. "You don't thank me for believing in you," she said. "That's what mothers do. That's what family does. I'm just sorry your father didn't understand that." I've started a foundation. It provides scholarships to young athletes whose families can't afford training costs or won't support their dreams. We've already funded 40 kids in our first round. I interview each one personally, and I always ask the same question. Does your family believe in you? The ones who say no get extra attention, extra resources, extra belief, because I know what it's like to chase a dream alone. And I know that sometimes one person believing in you is enough to make the difference. I think about my father differently now. Not with anger, not with longing, just with clarity. He was a man who was hurt young and spent his whole life trying to prevent that hurt from touching anyone else. He didn't realize that in doing so, he created a different kind of wound. The wound of absence. The wound of being told your dreams aren't worthy. The wound of winning Olympic gold and looking up to find your father sitting with his hands in his lap, unable to celebrate even then. That wound is mine to carry. But it's also mine to heal. I'm training for Los Angeles 2028 now. Another Olympics. Another chance to prove that every second I've spent on this track was worth it. My father says he wants to come. He says he'll be there, in the stands, cheering this time. Actually cheering. I told him he could come, but I also told him something else. "Dad, I'm going to win that race whether you're there or not. Whether you cheer or not. Whether you finally believe in me or not. Your presence doesn't change my performance. It never has. I learned a long time ago how to run without you in the stands." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I know. I don't want to miss it again." That's all I needed to say. I'm not running for my father's approval anymore. I stopped running for that years ago. I run because my body was built for speed, and my heart was built for competition. I run because nothing else makes me feel so completely myself. My father said sports were a waste of time. He said I'd fail. He said I'd end up with nothing. I have an Olympic gold medal, a world record, a foundation that's changing lives, a mother who believed in me from day one, and a future so bright that not even 22 years of doubt could dim it. That's not revenge. That's not karma. That's just what happens when you believe in yourself louder than anyone else's doubt. My name is Jordan Castellano. I am 26 years old, and I am proof that the only person who needs to believe in your dream is you. Everyone else can catch up later, or they can watch from 12 rows back. Their choice.